Hello everyone, this is Danielle, also known as Gently Smiling Jaws, and welcome to my Flosstube. It's been a few weeks. I didn't do the last video in my normal every 2 week schedule, and I'll get to that later on in the video, but this is actually the second time I'm trying to film this. I was looking at my footage for when I tried to record this video earlier, and I was sort of thinking I wasn't going to be happy with it, and I was not happy with the footage, and I was having issues with the audio and video because I record from a separate mic and then sync them together. It wasn't lining up, and I wasn't sure why, because I thought I had all my settings correct. I've also tried tweaking some things on my camera, so we'll see how this goes. Fingers crossed that this time works better and I actually get this one posted. So I will start off with tea. The tea that I am drinking today, I did not bring the tea in because I just talked about it in a couple videos previous. It's the tea that was brought back for me as a gift from France. It's a milk oolong. I'll put the info down in the description, but I mentioned it in a previous video. And I'm going to take a sip now because my voice is starting to get a little... But I didn't bring it in because I wanted to talk about different tea. This year is the first year I participated in White 2 Tea's Shulaween, where they have the show or ripe puer available. So they have some special ones around Halloween. There were kind of some new releases that they had, as well as this was the, I forget what exactly they called it, like their trick-or-treat bag. It's a bag of just sort of the, whoops, as I dropped that there, the sort of individually wrapped, let me, this here, individually wrapped, is it going to focus here, kind of single serving puer. We'll see, my focus on this may be a little different because I switched like the focus speed from the settings. We'll see here how this does. Hopefully with the cross stitch it'll be a bit better. Anyway, these are kind of the compressed balls of the puer, and they have, it's a combination of stuff that they sell separately on their site, as well as with some with Halloween kind of themed wrappers. This little skeleton guy, and so I got this bag of those because right now I find that I'm grabbing more towards the kind of single serving size things, because when it comes to a lot of things I tend to be kind of lazy with my tea, and if I have a little serving like that handy where I can just unwrap it and steep it, versus, you know, digging out the cake that I want and breaking off a portion of it, I tend to go the easier. So I figured I would try those. I also got some of the minis of some of the other teas that were on their site. The more I talk, the more I feel like my voice starts to get froggy. I'm not sick, but it's just whenever I sit down to start a video, it tends to do this. But the teas on their site, I grabbed a number of other ones, some other of the show puer that they had, as well as the like a white tea or two. There was just a few things where everything I got on this order was in the mini format, but because I was ordering and having it shipped from overseas, it made sense to kind of pick up all the things I was interested in within my budget as part of that one order, since it was going to be shipping in from overseas. So that's what I got. Of the ones that I have tried, one of the new shows, it was called Shotgun Shack, I think. That one I quite liked. It was a nice smooth flavor to it. So yeah, since it was new tea, I wanted to mention it. So that is for the tea portion of things. Now to the cross stitch portion. I obviously, since it's been a while since I've done a video, I have done stitching. It hasn't been you know, as much as other times, because I have been stitching more, but I've still been in a bit of a slump, and so we'll go through what I've got, because I have gotten some things done. First thing is the progress that I made on Perky Lion, the pattern from Marroomy Designs. And I don't have jotted down how many more stitches I put into this. But I think I may be somewhere around like 900 or 1,000 at this point. And so I've got the top border, got the face of the lion started to go down, one of the lion's legs, and as I mentioned before, the fabric that this is on is from banana oil, and this is Mo's Sale Silk, I think, in mustard, and in a previous video I showed a couple others of Mo's Sale Silk where I wanted to use those, and some of the other patterns that Miriam has done in sort of this series of animals. And a while back I did spend a little time trying to plot out how I would arrange all the patterns and fitting in like additional kind of borders, because she also has some patterns that are just like kind of border segments that you can use if you're stitching stuff up. And so I kind of sort of have a plan, but I don't know that that's exactly what I'm gonna do. I still have decisions to make, but that's the portion of the lion that I have progressed on so far. Next is the temperature chart that I'm designing for myself, where I just have kind of the base area. There's a border I want to do as well, but I haven't gotten around to doing that. But I am trying to get sort of the main body of it done, so there's a place for the temperature colors to go next year. And ideally I will have the snake portion of this, because this is based on a snake that I had. Ideally I will have that portion of it finished by the end of the year, so that it's kind of all ready to go to start putting the colors in next year. Will that fully happen? I'm not sure, but this is where I'm at so far. Again, I don't know exactly the number of stitches because I didn't write that down in my notes. I could look in my other notebook, but at the moment I'm not going to dig through there. But this is what we've got so far. Let's see here. So like segment here, we're going to have, you know, January, February, March, April, and kind of the snake will go around and the months will go in there. And of course this is, I've done a few little things here and there with trying to design stuff, and this is kind of the first kind of bigger thing that I have tried to do. And you know, I already know that I have tweaked things, because on my pattern I made some, whether the issue was in the pattern and I stitched it wrong, or I did it wrong in the pattern and copied that. I did notice that I had like the number of days kind of wrong, and I had to go and frog stuff some stuff and redo some stuff, but I think I'm back on track. So there's still a ways to go. I had put some more time into making progress on this, and then it got set aside as I worked on other things, but I plan to get back to it. Right now, it's mainly just I've got like 2 green colors in there, as well as some of the blue there, but there is also white and yellow that will be added in for the snake portion. So that is still to come, but I have made some progress on that. Time for another sip of tea here. Okay, this, as I'm sort of going in order here, this is where most of my stitching has gone since my last video. I have put 2,266 stitches into this freebie pattern from Modern Folk Embroidery called Free Palestine, and that is where I am at so far. This is on a 46 count fabric from Fox and Rabbit. I think it's called Winter Wren. The flosses are mostly silken colors from Thread Gatherer, although the white is DMC Blanc. And 46 count is, I mean, mostly I stitch on 40 count these days, although I stitch on a variety of stuff. 46 count is the smallest that I currently feel comfortable, stitching on. I don't know, my eyes aren't necessarily happy with me, even though I'm using like a magnifying light and all that. So yeah, it's not, I have a little bit of trouble, but I'm kind of gotten used to it. But I'm always really happy with how stuff looks when I stitch it on 46 count. So I am very happy with how this is turning out so far. This, as I said, was a freebie from Jacob at Modern Folk Embroidery, and he has it charted in just 2 colors, but I'm, kind of changing things so I can get, in addition to red and black, the green and some white in there as well. And so I kind of pushed through until I'm like just over the 50% mark as far as stitches go. And so I made a big chunk of progress on this. It just seemed like I hadn't pulled it out for a while to work on it, and it seemed like it was the right time to put some more stitches into this. So I pushed through, got a big chunk done. I think that this is gonna maybe sit for a little bit as I work on some other things that I want to or need to work on, but I will certainly come back to this, and I'm really happy with how this is looking so far. So this is the main thing I've been stitching on since the last video. So the last thing, which I'm hoping to get back to soon, is I pulled out this is one of the 8 Biscornu patterns in another modern folk embroidery pattern called a Biscornu. And time for a sip of tea again. And this is on a 40 count fabric. I think it's R&R Reproductions fabric, and the floss is another Silken Colors from Thread Gatherer. But I am close to having this done. I just need to do down in this corner. There's a few motifs there, and then there is a 1-stitch border that goes all the way around. I am currently deciding whether or not to do that. Whether to do it, finish up the whole thing, or just get this main pattern done and then call it a day. A while back, I thought that I was not going to do that border. when I was stitching on this last, I thought maybe I will do that border, but I'm not sure. I'm probably not going to decide until I get that middle section done, and then at that point I will figure out whether I'm going to go on and do all the stitches or just call it a day and have a finish for once, since I don't have those very often. So yeah, I want to work on this some more. Maybe I will work on this, well, maybe I will work on this later today, but what I need to do later today is edit this video that I am filming now, because if I stay on track, yeah, I'm filming this on Saturday and this will be posted Sunday morning, so fingers crossed this all works. But yeah, this has been one I've been meaning to, I keep meaning to go back to because it is so close to having it done, and I just want to get it wrapped up. So hopefully soon. Hopefully soon. So those are all of the projects that I have worked on since my last video. The other thing I wanted to talk about as far as cross stitching is, well, I was going to start with saying a sal, and I suppose I should address the other sal that I'm behind on. The Plants and Petrichor sal, I got off track with that because I was in a bit of a slump. There was 1 week's pattern that came out that had, it wasn't a ton of stitches, but it was more than I was sort of feeling mentally ready to tackle at the time, so I didn't do it then, and then I've gotten off track and haven't gotten back to it. I believe all the parts of the sal have now been released, so I just need to finish it up. I just haven't gotten back to it yet, so eventually, but not there yet. But despite being behind on that and being behind on other sals, such as the Stitch for Pride, which again, they're small sections and I just need to take them back out and work on them and get some more of that done. But if you watch the let's try that again. If you watch the Sunshine Stitchers, you'll know that starting in mid-December, they are doing the Put a Bird on It sal. They did the one that they're doing right now is it's a Quaker from Rosewood Manor. I'm not remembering the exact name of it, but that's the one that they've been doing recently. And I like the pattern. I just had enough other things, and it was kind of far enough into the sal that I wasn't ready to, take that on. But, and I suppose talking about that sal, I want to mention Jerica, the Daybreak Stitcher. I always get a little confused because there's Jerica and Nithya, and one of them is the Daybreak Stitcher and one of them is Daybreak Stitchery, and they're both great people and you should both go watch both of their floss tubes. But kind of seeing the story of Jerica's working on that sal for that Quaker, she had to restart it 3 separate times, but she finished it, and that is some perseverance, and I am in awe and admiration of her accomplishment there. So go check out her channel and the videos and her story of how all that happened. But the new sal that the Sunshine Stitchers will be doing is the Put a Bird on It sal, using the Put a Bird on It pattern from Jacob at Modern Folk Embroidery. As you can tell, I like Modern Folk Embroidery's patterns quite a bit, so I decided that I would join in on that one, and I also decided I was going to just use stuff from my stash as far as the fabric and the floss. So my thinking was that I have a stash of fabric, but I also have amongst that some really nice fabrics from Banana Oil, like you've seen there. And the fabrics look great and there's a lot going on them, and so I figured that maybe a good way to use them would be to pick one, use for the sal, and then just use a solid color of fabric like DMC Blanc, which I have did quite some time ago. I got a big cone of both the DMC 310 and the Blanc, figuring that those were colors that I might be using often enough that I didn't want to have to worry about not having them on hand, so I just got some cones, and now I may never have to worry about buying them again. So I pulled out my banana oil fabrics, and the two that I'm still deciding between, and I don't think I'm going to fully settle on one until I actually go to pick up my materials to start the sal in December. Here are the two. I am leaning towards this one because it is an 18 count Aida, or Aida, however you want to pronounce it. It is this bright rainbowy fabric, and it's closer to my, at 18 count Aida, it's closer to my preferred stitch count. So this is the fabric I am leaning towards because it's nice and bright and happy, and I think I would have fun stitching on it, and the fabric could shine through and look great on that project. Let me grab the next fabric. This next fabric is a 14 count Aida, so I really like the color, but since it's 14 count, the reason I'm not leaning towards this one is because I don't know that I want the final pattern to be as big as it would be if I use this count of fabric, because I figure if I make it through this, I kind of would like to put it in a frame, and so I'm thinking about size and all that. But I do think that this would be gorgeous with just using the DMC Blanc on it. So yeah, this is a nice big piece of fabric. This is it folded in half, so there's a lot of it. So if I don't use this for the put a bird on it, I think I will have to figure some other maybe similar pattern to do in just a solid one color of floss, and just let the fabric show off and do its thing. So those are my cross stitch related plans. Okay, the other thing I have to show this week as far as a fiber related hobby is I actually did some crochet, which I haven't done since quite a bit earlier this year. I was doing it for a while. I started in on this blanket, which I'm doing just for myself, so it has no deadline, no timeline. I just work on it when I want and don't worry about it otherwise. But I pulled it back out again because my sister-in-law has started crocheting, and she wanted to get together to talk about, crochet stuff. So I went to go see her and my brother, and I took this along with me and did get a few rows in. So as it currently stands, we are at this much of the blanket done, which obviously isn't a ton, but although it's been slow going, I'm enjoying how it's turning out, and because it's for me, that's all that matters. I am using two different colorways of Malabrigo Rios. And one is Iris, and the other one is like Indiecita, which I may be saying incorrectly. I'll have to put the information down in the description, as well as I'll link to the video where I found the pattern. It's like a faux bobble or something. It's basically using a combination of single and double crochet, where you're stitching, single, and then going and stitching the double down into one of the lower loops, and it gives this sort of textured look to it. So that is coming along, and I think you can see when I hold it back that obviously with Malabrigo, each skein is going to be a little different, and so you can see the change in the colors as I swapped. I'm doing so for the two colors I am doing go do a row and come back and switch to the other color, and then a row and come back and switch to the other color. So two different colorways where I'm switching every 2 rows, but then when I switch the skeins of each color, then you can start to see that difference as well, and that is perfectly fine with me. So yeah, and this is the time of year where once it gets colder, picking up a big crochet project like this is always easier to do, because when it's warm in the summer, even with this amount of stuff, I don't want to necessarily have this sitting in my lap and me getting warm and working on it. But this time of year, sure, I could sit there and pull this out. Yeah, so some progress made there. I haven't pulled it back out again since I worked on it that day, because I've been more focused on cross-stitch stuff. But that is where I am with that. I suppose I should also say that one of the other patterns that I mean to bring back out again, which is not crochet but going back to cross stitch, is I did get, I think maybe I'm about halfway through Modern Folk Embroidery's Jewel Bakken, that Christmas goat one that I worked on last kind of Christmas time into early this year, and then I've set it aside, but I think I need to pull that back out again, and that's one I'd like to finish. Whether that happens soon or not, I'm not sure, but I would like to get some more stitches in it. So that's for the fiber arts portion of things. Now I would like to talk about books, because I have been going through more books, doing audiobooks from the library, and I don't remember whether I mentioned this in my previous video or not, but I had relatively recently gotten a library card to our county library system, which I believe years ago there were certain rules in place where you could have a Seattle Public Library card, but you couldn't have the King County Public Library card. I don't know, I just have very fuzzy memories of this from the distant past, but I had looked into stuff more recently and saw that you actually could get a county library card as well. So I got mine, and now when I go on my Libby app to look and put things on hold, it's nice, because if there's something that I'm looking at and I'm searching with one library, it will tell me, hey, there's a shorter wait list in the other library system, and I can put it on hold there. So that's been helpful. I have been, like I said, doing, with rare exceptions, most of the books that I have gone through this year are audiobooks. And in the past, I was someone who had tried to listen to audiobooks and my mind would wander too much, and audiobooks in general didn't really work for me. But I find that recently, and it may be because I'm often listening to the audiobooks while I'm focused on something like cross-stitching, I feel like I can focus more on audiobooks now than I could, a number of years back. So I have been enjoying that. I will say there are certainly times where if I am a little less focused, I will have to rewind back and listen to a section again. with an audiobook, I'm not going to go and one of the books I'll talk about once I got to the end, if I had been reading a physical copy and I got to the end, I probably would have flipped back to several previous sections and reread them to kind of see them in a different light. But with an audiobook, I wasn't going to do that. So there are, audiobooks are working for me now. There are some downsides to them that I find, but in general, they're working for me, and I really wouldn't be consuming any books right now if it wasn't for audiobooks. So I am happy to be listening to them right now. And I think as I go through this process, I've been trying to get all my books from the library instead of purchasing things. I do have some kind of minor exceptions to that, which I'll talk about. But my goal in this process is, in the past, I would have just bought books and then I'd have books around and I'd have books that I'd feel meh about and then be like, well, do I keep it? Do I want to donate it? And I just have stuff around, and I feel like I don't want to be bringing in as much stuff. And so by going through the library, either whether I do an audiobook or an ebook or whatever, then it allows me to go through books, not pay money for them, and then if I come across something that I really like, then I could consider getting a physical copy if I feel like it's something that I'd want to reread again, in physical form, have that physical book around so that it's, there anytime I would like to revisit it, because ebooks are nice as well, but again, like an audiobook with an ebook, I'm not necessarily going to be, it's not the same as having a physical book where you can just flip back and forth super easy to other sections to look back at something again. And so there are things that I like about each format of book, and for now, I'm mostly using the library to access the books before I decide if there are any I would like to add to my collection. The exception that I mentioned before is that years ago I had an Audible subscription, but then I stopped because I wasn't going through audiobooks as much. But Amazon was doing a promo, I don't know if it's still going on, where if you signed up for an Audible subscription, the first 3 months would be 99 cents a month before it kicked in to the full price. So I thought, it's Amazon. I'm going to take advantage of this deal, and I have set a reminder on my phone to cancel my subscription once I have gone through the months that are 99 cents worth. So I have, that's what I'm in now. I did they were doing the other day some sort of like 2 for 1 sale, and so I looked through sale books, found a couple that were things I had sort of had earmarked as wanting to read at some point, and you're like, okay, well, I'll go ahead and do those, use my credit for the month on those, and then I don't have to wait for them from the library, and it was 99 cents. So there's that. The other thing that I did was when I don't buy physical books very often anymore. When I do, I've been looking more towards bookshop.org, and so you can order books online, but you can designate a local bookshop, or kind of any physical bookshop that you choose to kind of receive a cut of it. And so there's ours. I am going to be ordering a few books as gifts this year, and so I'm going to be ordering them through Bookshop. And I think, I don't know how much like Libro FM is associated with Bookshop, but they're sort of like seem to be the independent ebook equivalent of Audible. And they were also doing some sort of special, and I went and I paid for a month to get my the extra credits, and then have put my subscription on pause for now. And what I used those credits for is for looking for audiobooks that are long, that I want to read, where I don't know I can get through them before my hold period expires if I borrow them from the library. So the books that I got with my 3 credits from there were, and this is the page in my reading journal where not all the books, but I've been putting kind of book covers of books that I want to read. I saw this from, I can't remember who, looking on somebody's YouTube video where they were going through their reading journal, and this was an idea that they had, and I thought that was great, so I've been using it as well. These books, the Jade City, Jade Ward, Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee, which I have heard that they are very good, but the audio, it seems like each book is like somewhere in the 24-hour vicinity, and those are long enough. I figured I could use credits on that, and then I can go through them when I'm ready at a pace that works for me, and I don't have to worry about when I have to return them. And then I have all 3 so that when I get to the end of one, I don't have to wait a really long time to get to the others. Because if I remember right, when I looked on the library, the hold lists for these were quite long. So I figured that was a good choice for those credits. But yeah, those are the only, books that I have done any purchasing of recently, and that was under specific circumstances. So since my last video, I have gone through several other books. I am up to for this year 19 books, and 2 of those books were audiobooks that I listened to like back in April, and then everything else has been since September. So that seems like a lot, but a lot of these were short, so not very long. I'm not trying to hit any particular number or anything, and I guess I'm kind of surprised at how much I've been getting through, because I didn't think I would even get to where I was, because I'm trying to go at a pace that works for me, and just read as I am interested, and I don't want to turn this into forcing myself to do, just like with cross stitch other stuff. I don't want to feel forced to be doing something that should be enjoyable. So I'm just going through reading what I would like at a pace that works for me. So last video, I was still reading This Wicked Fate by Kaylin Bayron, the sequel to This Poison Heart. I finished it. I enjoyed both of those books. I think those books, I was not necessarily in the mood to enjoy them as much as I could have, because I did enjoy them quite a bit. I think they're worthwhile reading. I just wasn't I think I was ready to be in the mood to be reading something else at the time that I was reading those. But what I'll insert in the video a photo of the kind of spread I created in this reading journal before I filled it all in, because I really like how it turned out. But as I've been doing this more, I also think that I don't necessarily want to be showing all the pages after I have filled everything out, because then I feel like I am holding myself back when I write things, because I'm like, oh, this may be seen on camera, and I don't want to worry about that. So I did take a picture before I wrote in on it, and I'll put that in. I had washi tape and flower theme washi tape and stickers that I had bought, again, a number of years ago, and I just had stashed away. I'm like, with those books, that's the appropriate stuff to be decorating all the pages with. So I really like how that turned out. So that was a wrap up of what I had read previously. Okay, so on to the books that I have started and read since the last video. First up was Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. I have not watched the movie. I've heard plenty of people like the movie and the books, but I've managed never to watch the movie. I decided, well, maybe I'll watch the movie, but then knowing that there were books, I'm like, well, let me read the book first, and then I can watch the movie. And I know there's other books in the series as well. So I knew like a tiny bit going in, but that was it. I figured, well, I've managed to go without knowing for this long. I'm going to just go in and experience what the story is. And what I discovered was that it's not a book for me. I don't think... I know there's other books in the series. My understanding is that the other books in the series people like more than this particular one. But with all the books that I would like to eventually read, I don't know that I want to spend any more time on these when I didn't really enjoy Practical Magic. It wasn't anything... I didn't dislike it. I didn't dislike it. I didn't hate it. I just didn't really care that much about the characters. And yeah, that was it. I didn't care much about the characters. The writing style was not necessarily my thing. I think at some point I will watch the movie, but it was okay, but it just wasn't for me. So that was that. The next book was a book that I think it was something where I'd seen a small little review in like the New York Times, and discovering that it was a very short book that, let's see, less than, the audiobook was less than 3 hours. So I thought, sure, that's something I want to read. That book is The Night Guest by Hildur Knutsdottir. Hopefully I'm saying that right. She's an Icelandic author. And the kind of gist of the story is that the main character, Ithun, I'm hoping I'm saying that name correctly as well, it's obviously an Icelandic name, but our main character, she's been feeling very tired, just exhausted. She's not sure what's going on. She goes to the doctor, and the doctor's kind of, a bit dismissive, and where she had a previous doctor that was more, kind of dismississive, and then she's gone to another doctor to try to get somebody who really, listens to her and explains what's going on. She'll, you try various things, and one of the things being try and get some more exercise, and that should hopefully help you sleep. So she ends up getting herself a step counter and is trying to make an effort to do more exercise. And then one night she goes to bed, forgets to take it off, gets up the next morning, and she thinks it's malfunctioning because it says that she has done so many steps during the night. And so the story is about her figuring out what's been going on while she's been asleep and why she's so tired. And I was intrigued by it. The ending of the book is pretty, it's something where the ending is pretty ambiguous. And I know, looking up reviews afterwards and people saying that they wanted the ending to be more clear as to what's going on. So if you want something that has a super clear ending, then this may not be for you. After I went through it once, I did listen to it again, like on a quicker speed, to go back through it, because if it's less than 3 hours, I figured I'll go through, try and absorb it again. And I enjoyed the book. I still don't kind of firmly have my own theory on what exactly happen. But I did find it enjoyable, and it's a quick read. So if you're somebody who is trying to reach a certain number of books for the year, that's a nice short book that you could give a try. And I think it was also an interesting book to read because I don't believe I've ever read a book by an Icelandic author before, and so from that aspect I found it enjoyable. And I found myself going to Google Maps and kind of pulling up, trying to figure out, sort of what part of the city these events were supposed to take place in, and it was a fun thing. So that was an interesting and quick read. The next two books, and because I haven't written anything in my journal for this, I'll go ahead and show these two spreads that I have. The books are This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno, and then A Closed and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers, so the next one in the Wayfarers series. So for This Thing Between Us, it's a horror book, but it's about a man who has recently lost his wife and he is grieving. And then there are unexplained things that were happening before she passed, as well as continuing after she passed, and all the stuff going on there. This is a book I don't necessarily know the best way to describe it. I mean, I don't read a lot of horror, but I suppose The Night Guest could kind of be described that way, and then this book as well. So with it not being a genre I normally read, I don't really know kind of what to expect from books like that. But there was a lot of things that I liked about this, although this book also had an ending where I don't feel like I firmly know what happened. But it's also a book where I'm considering at some point picking up a physical copy, because I don't want to reread it right now, but I would like to reread it again later. And there was just there's lots of interesting things going on in there, and you have both the unexplained and kind of horror side of things, as well as the grief side of things. And there was a few scenes in particular that stood out to me. One that I have seen other people mention as well is that there's this scene in a diner that is pretty interesting. And so yeah, I liked the book a lot. And I don't fully know how to describe it. So if you're somebody who wants, it's a book where if you read trigger warnings beforehand, you definitely should before reading that one. But I found it enjoyable. A Closed and Common Orbit, the other Becky Chambers book, as I've been trying to reread the Wayfarers books to get to the ones that I hadn't gotten to yet. I think the fourth book, and then there's a novella which I need to get to, but I wanted to go back and reread the previous books, so I could reacquaint myself with the world of those books. And when my hold became available, it was a book I wasn't necessarily in the mood to read, but I'm like, I want to keep going through so I can get to the new to me ones. And as I started to go through it, then more of the books started coming back to me. And also what I find with Becky Chambers books is that even if I wasn't gung-ho on reading it right then when I start in on it, once you get into the book, I just really enjoy it, and I remember how much I like her books. So there was a lot of things, there were some things before I started to read where I had vague memories of like, oh yeah, I think there was one book where something kind of like this was happening, then I started in on it and was like, okay, yeah, it is this book. And then it got to a certain point towards the end, and it's like, oh yeah, then this other thing is going to happen, which I had forgotten about. And so it was enjoyable to go back through that. I don't, so none of, although the Wayfarers books all take place in sort of the same world, they're not super connected with each other. Like the characters all change. And I without going too much into it, because I don't really want to spoil the things with the first book, but it's about an artificial intelligence and AI who's sort of learning to be a human, and kind of all that goes along with that. So that is story, and it goes back and forth between the experiences of the AI as well as the experiences of another character as they were growing up in a really weird situation. So yeah, I'm rereading it reminded me how much I like Becky Chambers books. So the next book that I went through was called The Majesties by Tiffany Sao. And this is a book where two things drew me in. One was the cover, which is gorgeous. And I really liked the cover, so I wanted to know more about the book. And then the kind of very short summary of what you're getting into with the book is that our main character, Gwendolyn, she is from a large, wealthy Chinese family in Indonesia. And there has been a large family celebration during which her sister has poisoned everybody, and Gwendolyn, who is narrating this from the hospital in a coma, is the only survivor. And she picks this up by kind of hearing things from the people that are coming into the room to tend to her in the hospital. And so she's lying there in a coma, kind of going back through her memories of growing up and things that have happened throughout the years, sort of trying to come to figure out why her sister did this, and that she's the only one who is left now. And so that was an intriguing premise, and so I decided I wanted to read it. And what I also liked about it is because it's I don't know that I have read any other book set in Indonesia, and just sort of reading things that are kind of different perspectives and takes on things and stories. I was intrigued and wanted to read it. After reading it, I heard people say that maybe the marketing did a disservice to the book, and it sounds like it was marketed as a part thriller and part Crazy Rich Asians. I have not read nor watched Crazy Rich Asians, so I can't speak to that. I wouldn't necessarily say, I would say it's a thriller, maybe in the way that The Secret History is a thriller, in that you know right from the very first sentences that something has happened, and that the book is going to be about how you got to that point. So that's about kind of as thriller as it was. I would say that I like the book. Kind of reading things about the family and its take on, getting perspective. There was one scene in the book where some of the characters talking, because the characters are always traveling around to different places because they have the money to do so, and the kids go to school, like in the US or in other countries. So you have people that are traveling around a lot, and you have some of the characters talking about sort of how the Chinese are stereotyped both in Indonesia as well in the US and other places, and that was sort of an interesting take to on things. So there was a lot that I liked about the book, and it was sort of interesting to see how things had played out. The ending, I was kind of ambivalent about the ending. When I read reviews after the fact, I saw there was a lot of people who didn't like the ending. And I can understand why they didn't like the ending. I didn't feel too much one way or the other. This was the book where after I read the ending, I wanted to go back and look at other parts again, but I wasn't going to re-listen to the book. I don't know. Maybe someday I will revisit it, but yeah, I thought it was interesting. It certainly wasn't my favorite book of the year, but I found it quite enjoyable and a worthwhile read. So that was number 19 on my books so far this year. The book that I just started reading, and unfortunately I just started as in I'm only like 20 minutes into it. And I didn't write down the details, and I'm using my phone for recording the audio, so I can't look right now, but the book is This Is How You Lose the Time War, and I know there's 2 authors of it, and I can't remember their names offhand. I kind of know some limited stuff going in, but it's a short book, so hoping to have that finished up this weekend. And then the next book that my hold finally came through on the library is Bunny by Mona Awad, I think is how you say her name. And that is a book that I have really been interested in reading for a while, so I'm excited to get to it. It seems like it's a book that you either love it or you hate it. So I'm hoping that I will be in the love it camp, but we'll see. I'll have to listen to it and make my opinion. So that's where I'm at as far as books. Let me take a sip here of tea. Okay. So now I want to get into some other things. I will mention here, and I'm putting it here in the video as an experiment. It will be down in the description as well as where I've normally been putting it. But the eSIMs, information for doing eSIM donations to Connecting Humanity, who get them to folks in Palestine to keep them connected to the internet. And in my last 2 videos, I had mentioned it like kind of right near the beginning of the video, and my guess is that the algorithm did not like that, because looking at my numbers, it seemed like those videos did not get pushed nearly as much as my previous videos, and that's fine, because as you can see from the size of my channel, if I were that interested in the number of people watching and number of subscribers, I would have stopped doing videos quite some time ago, because obviously this is a very small channel. But I am putting this towards the end as an experiment to see. So that info is down at in the description. One thing I should mention is that I know that they've been running low on eSIMs. I also know that they had some issues recently with Gmail and getting like cut off from their account and having problems with that. And so there was mention that they will probably be switching their email over to Proton Mail. So if you are donating, keep an eye out, because if you have been sending eSIM donations to the email, you'll want to make sure you have the right email address, because I'm not sure when exactly the switching will happen. I just had seen that it was something that they were considering doing because of the issues they had run into with Gmail. So just something to be aware of. So the other thing is my video schedule and such going forward. So obviously I did not, record. I missed a video because normally I had been doing 2 a month, and I had mentioned that I'm maybe skipping a video coming up. I hadn't really planned to skip a video, but my video had been scheduled to go up the Sunday after the US election, and to be honest, I didn't feel like recording a video that week, so I didn't. And that whole thing just kind of, was not in a place where I wanted to be recording a video then. I'm not going to stop recording videos, but I needed a break, so I took a break. I think that going forward, I may be switching to doing once a month and doing a video toward the end of the month, because I just going into next year, and I had sort of mentioned before that I may be having some kind of schedule change stuff. I'm trying to look at my schedule and figure out ways to spend more time with family. And so if I'm spending more time with family, then I am having kind of less time to work on my stitching, and that's kind of less content to put into a video. And I figured that doing one video a month may be the best way to have kind of enough content to make a nice video. And that may be what works for me, at least for now. So I'm planning that my next video won't be until late December. And when I do a whip parade, probably in January, I don't know whether that will be my January video or whether I will do a separate video. That's something I'll figure out, but at some point there will be another whip parade. So that's kind of where I'm at, and I'm not going to get deep into talk of election stuff here, but I figured that if you have been watching my videos and you have made it to this point in the video and seen some of the things that I'm stitching on, you kind of know where I sit as far as at least some of my beliefs, and so you know how disappointing this election outcome is for me. And not that I'm going to make politics some huge portion of my videos, but I'm also not going to completely separate all talk of what's going on, because obviously I'm stitching on the Free Palestine pattern, talking about the eSIMs donations. I'm not going to keep all talk of politics out of my channel, because that's just not something that I can do. And if that's not something you want to hear about, not something you're comfortable with, then my channel is probably not going to be the right one for you. And part of what put me into a bad headspace that election week is less about the outcome of the election, but all of everything that went on in my personal life in starting the election week of 2016. Because that week in 2016, within a few days, my favorite snake, the one who is the basis for my design of the temperature chart, he passed away. And that was sort of the turning point of like 6 or so years where I had I lost 6 of my pets, and I had 4 family members pass away. And obviously none of that is directly in connection to election results, but that was the marker in my head of a very bad time. And so once the election hit, aside from all the political ramifications for the country, immediately put me back into the headspace of absolutely everything going wrong in my life. So I'm still figuring things out with that. And then obviously on the political side of things, although I personally will be impacted far less than a lot of people because of how I look and how I identify and where I live in the country. I am still worried for people that I care about who do not look like me or identify the way that I do or live where I live in the country. And so trying to figure out a balance where I stay informed as to what is going on, being aware of ways that I can, take action and do things to help things be better, but also not sit and doom scroll and get myself into a really bad place mentally by just obsessing over stuff. So I'm trying to figure out the balance for that, and I think there will be a learning curve to that as time progresses and we get deeper into things. So that's where I'm at right now. That's where I'm at with my stitching and reading and all that, and assuming that I can get everything edited properly, that things work correctly this time, then this video will be up on Sunday, November 24th. And my next video should be sometime towards the end of December. So if you've watched through all of this video, which looks like it's going to be somewhat over an hour, we'll see where it lands after I do the editing on it. Thank you for being here and for watching my videos, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks so much. Bye.